Thank you, Chair. Joanna, you talked about evolving a cluster strategy for growth. How do we ensure that the learning from what Patricia described is actually fed into this new strategy for growth? The needs of micro businesses. As Patricia said, the predominance of growth, I represent the northwest of England, is in micro, and we're grouping SMEs together. There are different needs. In ensuring that financial intermediaries and business support and training and continuing professional development is relevant to the needs of micro businesses. There's been some innovative work done which is actually about reducing the intermediary level and actually making sure that in clusters growth, micro businesses can support each other in terms of new finances. And also, are you taking the learning from the structural funds, Joanna? Because, for instance, in the creative industries, my region includes Liverpool, Manchester, Preston. There has been some innovative work in cluster strategy around the creative industries. Are we taking the learning from structural fund projects into this new strategy? I absolutely agree with my colleague Adam in terms of the protection of intellectual property rights. It is an extreme and urgent problem for creatives. And finally, if I may, how does this feed into wider industrial policy and digital economy policy? And certainly in the UK, we still have, in my view, Chair, a disgraceful gap in terms of the gender gap and the black minority ethnic gap in entrepreneurship. What are we going to do about closing this gap and making sure that our policy promotes equality for all? Thank you.
First of all, if I may, I would like to already start with the idea and the criticism, also probably very legitimate, coming from Patricia regarding the instruments, the financial instruments, and the way that these are organized with the intermediary banks or financial institutions being the existing ones, and therefore perhaps not the ones who are going to be proactively looking for those SMEs that really need the European leverage for their financing. I think, first of all, I should say that we encourage, there is a rolling, an open invitation for banks to apply to the European Investment Fund, especially to become themselves shall we say, the ones who are actually doing this job with their local SME constituency. We, as the European Commission, have been engaged with the Enterprise Europe Network, and the new generation of Enterprise Europe Network, after 20 years of existence, will start as well in January of 2015 with a reinforced capacity of financial advisory services. This Enterprise Europe Network is a partnership between the European Commission and business organisations, regional development agencies, and anybody who is really close to the SME community, in order for them to be equipped with the skills and with the right advisory services for SMEs to actually help them present their case, also the bank managers. But this does not in itself present us with guarantees that the bank themselves will make a fair risk assessment of the projects that will be undertaken by the SMEs who would normally not be able to afford the normal packages that would be available normally at the bank. The aim of the financial instruments is actually to give this leverage. I would like to take up also this opportunity to and challenge that we ourselves would be more engaged as well to provide perhaps ourselves training and skills for the banking institutions themselves who are involved in actually dishing out the financial instruments in order to have a better and fair assessment of SMEs. Regarding cluster strategy, just one word, that what the Commission is planning for 2016 is that the cluster strategy will be aiming to focus on unlocking the potential in emerging industries, either by facilitating new industrial value chains or transforming existing industries via cross-regional and also cross-border regional cooperation. I think the strength of clusters is that there is always innovation which is empowered by the clustering of small and large companies together. I think regarding skills, there was a point on skills. We have taken this up as a new priority also in the new SBA. Regarding communication, of course, we can never pretend that we can be too close to the 23 million SMEs that are still out there. We have to depend very much on cooperation also by the business organizations on the grounds, by the SME envoys with whom we also govern the SBA, with whom we work very closely. We also have, however, the EEN advisory services that are very much present in different regions and that are obliged to conglomerate together and create a momentum for SMEs on the ground with our support.
Thank you. And again, like Joanna, I'll sort of group the questions by theme. If I can firstly start at manufacturing and the concept of clusters, because like many EU countries, we had very much moved to services, and now we've put a really strong, renewed focus on manufacturing. And I think it's critically important, again, that it's business-led. So in Ireland, our organisation is part of IBEC, which represents all business, and we ourselves are leading this. So we've set up people who are in the industry, who are manufacturing, to talk to each other and share best practice. And then we're feeding what they're saying into the governance committee. So there is responsibility on business too to take the lead in terms of what we can do. We are fortunate in that our country is small, so therefore, again, the multinationals tended to have located around particular cities. So the med tech companies, the ICT companies, the pharmachem companies are actually sitting in clusters. And the big benefit is that they are very proactive at encouraging their staff to actually be innovative and to spin out. Now, we've had to overcome issues around intellectual property, but they've been very creative in how they've done that. So they fundamentally think it's a good idea for workers, for multinationals, to spin out and produce new products and enter back into the sub-supply chain. So certainly that's a model that we're happy to share, and which again has been mainly industry-led. But I think certainly in terms of our funding and our grants, which again, I think just to make the point in terms of companies, they see that as coming from our own state agency, Enterprise Ireland. They never think that that has come from COSME or what's behind it at a business level. But I certainly think they're doing a very good job, and there is a lot more funding available to manufacturing than to services in physical cash to assist startup, and that's certainly good and welcome, recognising the comments that it's more expensive to set up manufacturing. In terms of the skills and the skills base, really, again, I think that this has to be industry-led. Governments do not know the requirements of business. So in terms of the funding mechanisms that are available, we have a mechanism of industry-led training where groups and clusters of companies come together and form what's called a skill net. They apply for funding. Again, much of that money comes from the EU, and that then is used to train workers, and also a percentage is to train the unemployed. But it's a very small amount of money relative to the other agencies who are just training unemployed people, again, without much reference to what businesses want and need. And the biggest thing in management development is getting the message through to owner-managers that they simply don't know what they don't know, and the fact that they should take the time out and hopefully with some supported subvention, because they won't pay market rate because they're too small, to actually work on their business versus in their business is a critical message. In terms of entrepreneurship amongst minorities, again, we find that targeted programmes where they're female-specific or ethnic entrepreneur-specific, and again, under the Equal programme that was run from the EU, I led an initiative amongst a number of countries during the time when we had 200,000 non-Irish workers in Ireland to say, look, these are very innovative people, they're risk takers, they've moved here, how can we help them create and set up? And our findings from all of the work we've done is that in the initial stages, yes, they want something specifically for them, where it's just about gender or about ethnic groups coming together. But very quickly they want to move into the mainstream. They do not want to be seen to be different. They want to join organisations like mine and meet other businesses. But certainly in promoting entrepreneurship, there's certainly merit in having programmes and finance programmes specifically allocated to favour the groups, and I'd include young people there as well as ethnic minorities and gender.